I'm in a very interesting situation right now. Having run this seminar for the last 10, 11 years and spoken for a number of years as the last slot, right? I'll tell you, it's normally a very short slot, and it's normally shorter than it usually is, and it aims to be, because everyone overruns, right? I think this is the first time we've ever actually hit run on schedule more or less throughout and reached this stage. I'm also in an interesting situation, because what I normally do, I was asked, in shul, someone naming a sign, said, what are you going to speak at this Curve seminar? I said, well, I have a number of different options, but really what I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare a number of different modules. I'm going to see what people talk about throughout the day, and then I'll strike off different things that are covered by different speakers, and we'll see what comes together at the end. So now we'll see what comes together in the end. What I'd like to talk about an entirely different facet of Curve to anything we've heard about today. This may be a strange exercise to do, but it's a fast day and we'll do it anyway. Everyone has in their mind, sometimes they have an image that helps them relax, right? So if you close your eyes and you think about it, one of the images that for whatever reason, I'm from Scotland, I went through university in Scotland, just is one of these things that is a curious image. It's like if you can visualize a pint of Guinness being poured and slowly settling, right? If you can't visualize a pint of Guinness settling, it's something you should put on your list of things to do before your next birthday, right? Just watch it, right? When you pour any glass, any drink, right? What normally happens, I go and I get a bottle of Pepsi Max, whatever it happens to be, I pour it into one of these plastic cups, and it all froths out, right? You take any gas drink, gas bursts out, interacts with the surfaces at the side, it froths out of the cup. You pour a pint of Guinness and you watch it, something incredible happens. If you look at it, right, you picture Guinness, right? It's a nice, dark, heavy, stout beer with a white, creamy head. What happens is the bubbles go down on the outside. So you've got this pint of beer that's pouring and you see the head frothing up, but the bubbles are going down the outside. Now, we all know that's not the way bubbles go in liquid, right? When you pour your drinks, bubbles go up. So why do bubbles go down on the side of a pint of Guinness? Some people actually took this to a very serious investigation and spent substantial amounts of money and time researching it. And I guess this is the reason why there is physics, to find out what was happening here. And it actually isn't just happening in Guinness, it happens in other liquids as well. It's just in other liquids, it happens so fast you don't see it. And in Guinness, the settling process is slow and the contrast of colours makes it visible. What happens is, just like every other drink, the bubbles go up. The bubbles go up in the middle of the drink. It comes up in a column, it gets pushed to the side, and then it comes into contact with the surface of the glass on the edges and the rim, and it gets dragged down by the surface tension. And so you can see the lines of the bubbles being dragged down. Now, normally when I give this mashal, I say, you know what, this is a mashal, it's a very obvious mashal for Kiruv. If you're connected to the source, if you're connected to Torah, you're always going up, you're pushing forward. If you're going out there in Kiruv, you come into contact with the outside world, that's symbolized obviously by the edges of the glass, and there's the potential to get dragged down at the side. I like to use the nimshal, a slightly different nimshal for this mashal today. We've heard about the intellectual side of Kiruv, we've heard about the emotional side of Kiruv, we've heard about the caring, the forming a relationship with people, the being nosa'o. We've heard about the inspirational side and the way that we can all inspire others. We've seen what you can do in the classroom, we've seen what you can do in Rabbanis, and we've seen that, the true representation of the Torah can't be distorted in any way. I want to take you to the other side. I'll give you a practical example, right, where I'm going to head to. The other side is the flip side. It's what goes on behind the scenes. So we were talking about Guinness before. I'll give an example of a Shabbaton I was involved in 20 plus years ago, right? Taking a bunch of university students from the UK mainland over to Dublin. Great, we're going to do a Shabbaton. It's a very traditional Kiruv Shabbaton. There's going to be Shabbos meals, there's going to be singing, there's going to be shiurim. But if you're going to spend Friday afternoon in Dublin, what are you going to take a bunch of university students to? You take them to the Guinness Brewery, right? You take them around the Guinness Brewery, they get a tour, and at the end, they all get their 2 free half pints of Guinness. which is great. Some of them really enjoy it. Some of them don't particularly enjoy it. Those that enjoy it drank those free half pints from those that didn't particularly enjoy it. Brilliant. That's great. It was a lovely Shabbaton. There was only one technical hitch. If you're going to take a bunch of students to the Guinness Brewery on a Friday afternoon before Shabbaton, don't arrange home hospitality for Friday night dinner. It doesn't go. You follow? No. I see these blank looks. Because if everyone goes and eats with local families, having spent the afternoon in the pub, it doesn't go well and it doesn't give you the opportunity for Kiruv. So what needs to happen with Kiruv is we need to think and we need to look behind the scenes. Roshiller talked, I think it was Roshiller, it might have been Rob Breitowitz actually. He mentioned a little bit about this week's parsha. I mentioned this briefly last year, I'm only going to touch on it just now. Moshe Rabbeinu is going to hand over the leadership. He's going to hand over the leadership to Yeshua. Before he hands over the leadership, he has a tefillah, he has a prayer. And he asks Hashem what he's looking for. And he asks Hashem, V'yidaber Moshe al Hashem lemor, V'yivkad Hashem elokei ruchos l'kol basar, ish al ha'edah, to appoint a man on the congregation. What are the qualities the man's going to have? Asher yetzel lifneihem v'asher yevol lifneihem, v'asher yotziem v'asher yeviem, lot yeh adas Hashem k'son asher ein lahem roeh. He's looking for someone who's going to be able to go out before them and come in before them, who's going to be able to take them out and is going to be able to bring them in. And they shouldn't be, the congregation shouldn't be a congregation without a shepherd. It's obvious, right? If you're going to, well, maybe it is obvious. Isn't the person who's going to go out before them the same person who's going to lead them out? Isn't the person who's going to come in before them the person who's going to bring them in? Not necessarily. They're different qualities. Molesky is a beautiful explanation. He explains, I think quoting Rabbi Salanter, he explains quoting the Mishnah at the end of Sota. The Mishnah says, "Be'ikvas Mashiach, pnei ador k'pnei kelev." For in the footsteps of Mashiach, the leaders of the faces of the generation are going to be the faces of the dog. What's going on? Right? Most of us haven't got dogs. Most of us probably haven't got dogs. We all know people who've got dogs. You've seen people take a dog for a walk. Someone takes a dog for a walk. What happens? The dog's running in front, right? And the person's going along behind, pulling on the lead. Who's leading? The dog, right? Except the dog gets to the corner. He stops, waits for the master to get to him, and then tell him, look, this is the direction we're going. We're turning left, we're turning right, we're crossing the road, wherever it happens to be. So even the people are in front, the dog's in front, it's always looking behind the leader, right? You think it looks like the leader's in front. Today we live in a world which is, democracy is the ideal, but anyone who's elected is constantly looking behind to the electorate. Are they really the leader, or are they just the elected figurehead? Who's leading? Now, the idea I want to bring here, more than that, is there's two different facets to leadership. Right? We're talking about someone who's not only going to be able to go out in front, but they're going to be able to bring the people with them. There has been a significant debate in sort of business literature. Leadership and management, right? Are leadership and management one thing, the same thing, or are they two different things? Leaders, I guess the stereotype impression is leaders give vision, they give a sense of purpose, they give a sense of direction, and the managers are the people who implement that. But it's not really true, because anyone who's a successful leader has management skills, and anyone who's a successful manager also has leadership skills. And you need to have both. And if you're out there and if you're working in Kiruv, and de facto, if you're doing anything in Kiruv, you can be a Rabbi in a classroom, you can be running your own Kiruv organization, you can be an outreach rabbi, a community rabbi. You're a leader, you're a community leader. Whatever you're doing, you're already in a position of responsibility. You think I'm a Rabbi in a classroom, you're way out there, you're in an out-of-town classroom in a place, already you're one of the Rebbeim of the town because you're a Rabbi in a classroom. People look to you in that leadership role. But in order to be able to bring people with you, you need to have a this synthesis, not just of being the leader, but the management skills that are going to accompany that. And if people go and if people work in Kiruv and they think in Kiruv, and you're always thinking the vision, and the vision is very important, we'll come back to that in a minute, but you're never thinking of what's going to go behind it, you're never going to fully achieve what's potential. I'll give you a practical example of that. Where's the first source we see of Kiruv in the Torah? It's Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu is sitting in his tent, he's sitting at the gates of his tent, the tent's open on four sides, so the people coming from all different directions are going to be able to come, and he's going to be able to entertain them, and he's going to be able to carve them to a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Rashi is a very interesting Rashi at the beginning of Parshas Vayera. Hold on. So Avram Avinu is sitting, Pesach Oel, he's sitting at the entrance to his tent. Lirot im yesh over v'shav, v'yachnisam bebeto. To see if there's someone going back and forth and to bring them into his house. Hold on a second. Firstly, why is he sitting at the entrance to his house? He wants to go and do Achnasas Orchim. He wants to bring people in. But, the people who are neem, who don't have food, they'll come to him anyway. He's known. They know Avram Avinu is a house to come to. They'll come and they'll knock on the door and he'll invite them in. So who's he waiting for? Who's he keeping an eye out for? So if someone's never had need to go to someone for tzedakah or charity, right? To go and make that first step and first approach is very difficult. So they're often, they walk past the door, they think about it, and then think, shall I go, shall I knock on the door? I'm a bit nervous. Until someone gets the habit or the hang of having to ask, it's a very difficult thing to do. So Avram Avinu is in this situation. The people who come to him are going to come to him, but he's looking out for the people who are walking past. As Rashi says, over V'shav, for the people who are going back and forth and haven't yet come to the door. How difficult is it for someone who's not yet religious to walk into a yeshiva or to walk into an outreach centre? I used to work in JLE in London. JLE is the Or Sameach branch in London. And I don't know if any of you have seen it, but when you come to the doors, you walk in through the glass doors, and the first thing you've got is these flight of stairs going upstairs. And if you've never walked in there before, right, the number of people we spoke to, they feel like it's intimidating. Right? Why should it be intimidating? Right? And the answer is, it shouldn't be intimidating. Because we've got to keep an eye out for, and know that, if our goal is Kiruv and outreach, here's a practical implementation of it, it's got to be made as welcoming as possible. You've got to go out of your way so that the people who do go back and forward and think, shall I go in there? Shall I walk up the stairs? Why do so many Kiruv groups? Why is it so important that so many Kiruv groups come to Or Sameach and come to yeshivas here or elsewhere? Right? They come, they sit and they learn for 2 days, for 3 days. Some of them come back and they learn, an extended, a 10-day trip, a 3-week trip. But most of them are short-term trips. They come in here for a few days. Why is that so important? The answer is because if you've never set foot in a yeshiva before, you've absolutely no idea what it's like. What's your stereotyped image of a yeshiva? You say that to a non-religious person, they're halfway thinking about a monastery. Right? So someone comes in, they come and they walk through the door, they see there's normal people here, there are people here that they could be on campus with back in their university, they sit and they receive intellectually stimulating talks from the different Rabbanim, they see the general vibe and the atmosphere around, you completely break a stereotype and all of a sudden it becomes a very welcoming place. And it can go into someone's head and they can think about, this is something I can think about, I'm going to come back to again in the future. So, a couple of points about leadership. We mentioned briefly vision. Roshilla talked about the idea about the overall perspective, seeing kolot, the difference between vision, shmiya. Vision, you've got the overall picture. Shmiya, you've got to be up close, you've got to hear individually. But the vision's got the snapshot, the overall perspective. What's vision? Again, going back many years, my first involvement in Kiruv was involved in youth movements in the UK, which were not particularly religious youth movements, but that had a very strong Jewish identity. There was a poem I heard then, I guess this is probably the wrong audience, but there was Roger McGuff. Roger McGuff, the Merseysound, Liverpudlian poet, these poems were published in the late 1960s. There was a poem that goes like this. I want to be the leader. I want to be the leader. Can I be the leader? Can I? Can I? Promise. Promise. Yippee! I can. I'm the leader. I'm the leader. Okay. What should we do? That's the poem, right? The message is very obvious, right? Leader, first thing you've got to have absolutely clear is direction. You need to have a vision. You need to know where you're wanting to get to. Now, we see obviously tremendous amounts of leadership from the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu was the leader of Klal Yisrael, but his leadership was vision-driven. Right? There was a nevuah, there was an experience at the burning bush. He experienced a vision. He was told he's going to go, he's going to take a people out of slavery, he's going to bring them to Eretz Yisrael. There was a challenge that was expressed to him, but it was given as a vision. At the end of his life, there's another opportunity. We will be coming up to him in the coming weeks as we go through Sefer Devarim. Moshe Rabbeinu is giving his speech to Klal Yisrael on the borders of Eretz Yisrael, and he shares his vision with Klal Yisrael. He shares his vision of how they're going to enter the land. He shares his vision of what's life going to be like in the land. He tells them of the challenges that they're going to have. He shares the vision of how they're going to constantly be able to maintain a connection with the Torah. Look at the mitzvah example of Hakhel, that they're always going to come back every 7 years and hear and connect to, so there's always fresh. But he shares that vision. They're always tied to this idea of what they're trying to achieve. So before you lead, you need to have a vision. But going back to what I talked about before with the pint of Guinness, right? You have the vision, you have the direction where you're going. But if you want to be able to keep with the bubbles always going up, you need to have the skills and you need to have the behind the scenes, the management skills, the management thoughts and processes in place in order for you to be able to go and achieve what you're trying to do. So one thing is to have a vision. A second thing is to set goals. Set specific goals for what you're trying to do with every activity. And then you've got to think about, okay, so what am I setting as a goal now? And what am I doing? And how's that going to affect, how's that going to implement, how's what I'm doing going to be effective in the goals? I'll give you a few practical examples. Rav Yitzchak Ziskind, he currently teaches in Juggling in London, one of the pioneers of Kiruv, right? He, a legend in South Africa. The Kiruv that he does is by forming, as we've heard today, by forming relationships with people. He gives shiurim regularly. Right? What are the purposes of the shiurim? If you ask him what's the purpose of a shiurim, obviously the purpose is to teach Torah, to share Torah, to inspire people in Torah, to let them learn something. But that's not his principal goal in teaching a shiur. As far as he's concerned, the shiur is the Heiki Timsa to get the Shabbos invite. Right? Because if people come to your shiur and they start coming to that, then you invite them for your Shabbos meals and you develop a relationship with them in the Shabbos meals, and that's when you can start developing a relationship and building growth. So if you're not going to have the facility to have a follow-up to the shiur, why are you having the shiur? I'll give you another example of this. If you're running, let's say, an Eastern European tour, right? There are many different organizations from the States, Canada, from Europe. They come on tours, they go to Poland, they hear through Jewish heritage, history, and the positive side of Jewish life in Europe, and then the events of the last century. And they can be tremendously inspirational and moving tours, and they can have a tremendous impact on the individual. Why are you running that event? Yes, you're running that event because you want to have the impact on the person. Yes, you want to give them the educational content. But at the same point, is the be-all and end-all going to be that one trip? Someone's going to come on a 4-day trip and then they're going to go back and you're not going to have contact with them? No, it's the same idea as the shiur and the Shabbos meal. You're doing it so that you, as a Makarev, as a rabbi, in whichever role you are able to develop a relationship with the people, that you're then able to follow up and that relationship is going to grow over the coming period of time. And whether it's you or your team of staff who are on the event, and that's the goal, so you can have those relationships going afterwards. Now, running an event costs money. Resources are limited. How are you going to decide what you're going to do? If you decide, that's my goal, and my goal is to be able to facilitate the relationships between the staff and the students, what do you do when you don't have staff to run an event? I can run the event, I can get the students to the event, we can do it, but you know what? I've only got 2 staff to go on the event. I'm not going to be able to send 6 Rabbonim or 6 Madrachim or Madrachot on the event to form a relationship to do the follow-up. If you can't send the staff to do the follow-up, your event's almost like Mavutal. It doesn't need to be there because you can't do what you're setting out to do. So you need to think, what's my goal? How am I going to implement it? And make sure you've got the ability to do the follow-up afterwards. My wife used to run seminars in South America. I can't remember the name of the Rav, many, many years ago. They used to run Kiruv seminars, Kiruv Shabbatonim. They used to have easily hundreds of participants. There were some that had thousands of participants. They had a shita in their Kiruv, and they saw a statistical difference. Every single participant at a Shabbaton received a phone call within 48 hours. Right? After the event, everyone got, ideally within 24 hours, definitely within 48 hours. And they saw a statistical difference when people received calls and follow-up calls within a short period of time, and even within a week. Right? So that again comes back to your planning and how you're going to do. How are you going to see that you're going to use your management to coordinate, to get and take? I've got this vision, I've got this lofty goal, I know what I want to achieve. How are you actually going to implement that? Same thing applied, to any outreach organisation. Have you a database? Have you an ability of doing follow-up and maintaining connection with your students, with your alumni? Because that's what Kira is about. Kira is about forming relationships. So that's one idea about leadership. One other idea about leadership in Kiruv, really leadership, is it's a sense of responsibility. Right? In order to take on a role, you have to feel a sense of responsibility. You have to be proactive about it. Contrast the beginning of Sefer Bereshis, and the beginning of Sefer Bereshis and Sefer Shmos. There's a tremendous contrast in the way that the incidents that happen in them. The opening chapters of Bereshis are about failures of responsibility, about abdications of responsibility. When Hashem confronts them with their sin, right, what does Adam say? It's Chava. What does Chava say? She blames, one second. Chava blames the serpent, the Nachash, right? Cain says, am I my brother's keeper? Noach, righteous in his own generation, is only righteous in his own generation because he didn't go and makar of others, he didn't go and warn everyone out. So there's an abdication of responsibility. In contrast to that, you see in the beginning of Shemos, Moshe Rabbeinu takes responsibility. When he sees two Israelites fighting, two of the Israel fighting, he intervenes. In Midianites, when he sees the shepherds, they're preventing access, they're abusing preventing access to the well, to the daughters of Yitro, he intervenes, right? He's brought up as an Egyptian. He could have avoided all these confrontations. He takes responsibility. Rabbi Levine mentioned a posuk earlier. He talks about Moshe Rabbeinu growing up and this is a lesson for each and every one of us. Vayehi b'yomim ahem v'yigdal Moshe v'yetzel lechav v'yar b'siv losam v'yar ish mitzri macha ish yivri me'echav v'yefen kol v'kol v'yar ki ein ish v'yachet ha-mitzri v'yetmana b'chol. So as in those days, Moshe grew up. He grew up and he went out amongst his brothers, and he saw their civilisan, he saw their toil. This is the nosa oil that Rabbi Levine was talking about. And he saw we'll go a step further in the pasuk. He saw an Egyptian man hitting an Ish Ivri from amongst his brothers. He turned this way and that, he looked left and right, and he looked and he saw there was no one there watching. And he hit the Mitzri, V'yitmana b'chol, and he buried him in the chol. And afterwards, the pasuk says, V'yetze v'yom he goes out in the next day to go and become a leader, starting on his path to becoming a leader for Klal Yisrael. I'll share an idea I heard when I was learning as a bocher here way back. I remember sharing it with Rav Spire, where we mentioned him as well. I don't know the makor for this. If anyone does, please, I'd love to know this. Who was Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu was an Ish Ivri. He knew he was a Jewish boy. He knew that he grew up, where his parents were from. He knew that. But he was a prince of Egypt. He was brought up in Pharaoh's house. Right? He was brought up with all the royalty. Right? He was someone whose identity was completely and utterly confused because he had two very conflicting identities. So what happens? So Moshe grew up with this conflict going internally. And he goes out and he sees his brothers, the Yidden, and he sees the Sivlasam, he sees their toil. And he sees the Egyptian hitting his brother Jew. And he turns this way and that, not left and right to look to see if anyone is watching. Internally, he looks internally and he sees himself. Am I Moshe the Ivri, or am I Moshe, Prince of Egypt? Who am I? V'yarki ein ish. And he saw that when he had this conflict, there was no person. V'yachet ha-mitzri v'yitmanu b'chal. He smote the Mitzri within him and he buried him in the sand. And then he went forward and took responsibility to go and become a leader for Klal Yisrael. So, as we close this seminar, it's going to be Mariv in a couple of minutes. You've met a large number of the Rabbanim who teach in Or Lagola. We've hopefully shared some ideas and insights into Kiruv, intellectual, emotional, hopefully a few practical ideas just now as well. If you have any questions, I'm around after Mariv. My contact information is on all the bits of paper at the back. Please be in contact. If the program's been going more than 30 years, we have hundreds of alumni filling meaningful positions in more than 30 countries across the globe. We're currently recruiting for the next year. If you're interested, please take the opportunity. Whether you come and join us or not, or whether you continue on your own journeys, in which time you should all continue to grow to maximise your potential, and also being the car of others to encourage Baruch. Thank you.